Welcome back to People Analytics. I'm your host, Lindsay Patton. Today I have with me Patrick Sutton, who is head of people at MainStreet. Welcome, Patrick.
Hi, how are you, Lindsay?
I am great this morning. I hope you are as well. Tell us, who you are, what you do, and why you do it.
Sure. Well, as you mentioned, I'm the head of people at MainStreet, where we provide sort of tax credits. We are the tax credit company for startups and businesses, helping them find ways to save money. As a head of people, it's everything, the end-to-end process from the moment you join MainStreet, or even before you join MainStreet. I have talent management, then there's the onboarding. Also, there's offboarding as well. There's learning and development, DEI, and just everything that's part of the employee experience. And I truly believe that I am a natural born people leader and I love people. So it just makes sense for me to be in this people space.
Yeah, so I kind of want to talk about MainStreet a little bit because it's so important for startups to be able to find funding, breaks. When you're, starting something from scratch, it can be really challenging to get that money you need.
Yeah, it can be. But then also, I think it's really, our company it's a few years old, like 3 years old, but we've had some really strong successes. And I think it attributes to one, for the people that we are. There's a great culture at MainStreet. And again, we are here to help businesses get tax credits. And if you are a startup, you want to find ways to get money and you want to have those savings so that you can continue to thrive, especially during these challenging times. And even before the challenging times, it's just always good to have that reserve and that extra money. And so I really love what our founder really, he's so passionate about wanting to help people, and that transcends into his messaging to all of us, which fuels into our philosophies of just the transparency of everything. And it truly, truly makes it feel like a great place to work, even though we're all remotely. It doesn't get any better than me.
That's so awesome. So this is a little bit different than your past experience because you used to work in corporate America and now you're working in the tech and startup world.
Oh my gosh. Yes, Lindsay. It's completely different. So long story short, I think that's how people say it. So for years, was in what we consider quote unquote traditional corporate America. Anyone who's worked in corporate, things usually take a lot longer to make decisions. Yeah. There are a lot of decision makers. And there's usually like somewhat of a politic of it all because you have to convince this stakeholder, this stakeholder, this stakeholder, this stakeholder. And then there's a long implementation. So I've done this for majority of my career. So it wasn't until the great pandemic of 2020 where I was able to make this career pivot into tech. And oh my gosh, tech moves at lightning speed. Everything but now I get the connection. I see why, because it's tech and someone's always developing the next best thing. So you've got to be willing to move fast. It's constant pivoting that you have to do. You have to have it's true. You have to have a growth mindset. You have to go in with just let's throw up on the wall and let's just see if it's going to stick. And if it doesn't stick, we're going to try something else. Versus in a traditional corporate world, you don't really get a chance to do too many experiments because it's usually a 4 to 5 month plus long implementation.
So what was that moving from one culture to another like for you?
To be honest, it took a little adjusting. Of course, there were some nerves. I was excited, but then it sort of it felt like freshman year. And I hate to compare this to freshman year in college. You're looking at your schedule. You're trying to find your class. Same thing here. Although I had all these years of experience, I was still trying to. I was a freshman. It was like freshman year in the tech world. Even though I knew my job, knew what I needed to do, it wasn't, oh, well, Patrick, you have to check with this person or check with this person.
Yeah.
It's, you are that person, implement it, do it, let's just see where it goes. And I think probably after a good month, I was like, okay, this is the gel of it. This is how you move. This is how you work. And it's truly like the TV show Amazing Race. You just gotta
Mm.
just have the adrenaline running and just move forward and just go. And I've been fortunate enough to kind of find my path into tech because I'm now this is my third tech company that I'm working at. And I learned gems from each place I've been. But one thing that's been consistent, tech moves fast, and you just
Mhm.
got to really be ready and just be prepared. Expect the unexpected would be the best kind of advice I would give someone making that transition from traditional corporate to tech.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit how there was a learning curve, but how did corporate preparation help you when, we transitioned into tech?
Yeah. So now the positives, which there are a lot of the traditional corporate, I knew the ins and outs of things. Like having myself having almost 15 years of managing people experience, I kind of had some concepts. I kind of knew some things that were going to work. I knew how to kind of take some of my coaching experiences and some of my learning and development experience and kind of build really fast programs and put out talking points that I knew that would help. The one thing that I will say in corporate or tech or whatever field, management skills kind of transcends everywhere. So if you know how to talk to people, listen with empathy, be an empathetic leader, those are things that really inspire people. And one thing about tech too is yes, sometimes there are a lot of people, because we move really fast, are put in positions of management and may have very limited management experience.
Hmm.
That it's okay, because again, the thing is, because tech moves so fast, within 6 months equates to like a year and a half in tech world. So
Yeah.
if you follow the guidelines and the principles of being just an empathetic listener and having true one-on-ones and taking good notes, things that I kind of like put together some talking points and tips for managers as I was coming on board and setting up those office hours, which again, something too that you don't have in traditional corporate, but it was always something I wish we could have, like
Mhm.
official office hours for people to come by, and found a way to really connect with those managers and give them like half hour coaching sessions. We would talk through any scenarios. And also, being a creative, I would take notes and send them like little creative scenarios, ways to empower yourself, ways to empower your group. And it's really paid off.
Yeah. Could you elaborate on those notes? I really liked the sound of that.
Sure. So one of the things that there's a book called The Four Agreements by Miguel Ruiz, and one of the agreements is sort of, it says be one with your word, meaning if you say you're going to do something, you need to do it. And I always tell managers, if you say that you're going to do something for your team, you have to do it, because that's building that trust. Trust is an essential thing that people need in delivering feedback and accepting feedback. If you trust me as your manager, you know that it's coming from a good place. So when we're having those conversations, I'm always like, what did you tell them? What's your word for today? What is there a performance issue? Is there a team issue? And we talked through that team issue. And I said, so did you tell them that you were going to resolve it? I said, so you have to be a person of your word and resolve it. You can't say, oh, well, things get so busy, I got pulled away. That team or that individual is really depending on you. And so make sure you're following up and follow up timely. Don't say, oh, well, I got to follow up on this issue a week from now. I said, because again, your word really does become your bond, especially in high impact, hyper growth tech startups. So we start the call off with like, what's your motivation for today? And they say my motivation would be to do a good job or to show up as my best self. So during these little syncs that we have, I tell the managers, okay, showing up as your best self, what does that look like? Are you being present? Are you taking notes? Are you giving good eye contact while you're in the Zoom? Are you asking your employees how their week was, how their day was? How do they want to be great? It's all about being able to keep your team inspired, keep them motivated, and keep them connected to knowing what's happening in the business. And before you know it, Lindsay, they've already got their 15-minute empowerment check, and they're able to move forward. And what I do, and it's something that I started a few years ago, is I will keep notes of what I've spoken to that manager about, so that then a few days later I can follow up and be like, how did it go? What did you do? So now I've become like that accountability partner to them, which I think part of being a head of HR and people is you have to let them know that you have their, you have their back, you have their best interest at heart as well.
Yeah, and I feel like, at least from my personal experience, because I've been in startup world, small business world, it's easy when you're in those growth wish list type environments, like, when you're moving so fast, to think about your goals or opportunities or what you want to offer, and talk to employees like you will offer them, if that makes sense. The amount of times I've been told get profit sharing bonuses and have it not come through to fruition is just so frustrating. So the fact that you have accountability in place is really, really awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, accountability is key because if no one holds you accountable, then it's sort of like I can promise you the world. It's not like who's going to hold me accountable for it. And I think that's really, really big. And it's important here at Main Street about accountability and transparency. I think that's two of our key strong values that we really try to practice daily.
Yeah, so I want to turn back to management, because in startups, I know a lot of founders, they don't have management experience because they are going off an idea, or are hiring people that are good for the skills that they need, but may not have that managerial experience. So in startups and fast-paced environments, how do you really work to help coach and help people learn how to be better managers?
It's through a lot of like constant communication. It's one of the things that I truly love about my job and the work that I do, because I will always say this, and people hopefully would double click on it, that I am a natural people leader, is that when I'm talking to people, I'm fully engaged. Mm-hmm. You and I are having a conversation. I'm totally present with you. I'm not distracted. I'm listening to you. Mm-hmm. When I'm talking to the CEOs or when I'm talking to other leaders who may have that limited experience, I'm like, let's just have a conversation. And mm-hmm. I'm listening to them. And then, of course, because I feel like active listening is a superpower, I try to paraphrase what you said. So what I'm hearing is this. So I think this is what we first need to look at. So this looks like to you, yes, I have a whole lot of people that I knew that could do the job, but I'm not sure if they're the right fit for managing people. So what does that look like? Let's unpack that a little bit more. So what you're saying is we need to get a people program or some kind of training up and running, even if it's 15 to 30 minutes, where people are being able to go through some kind of program where we're giving them awareness of what's it like to manage people while keeping them committed to the business. And while I'm talking to that leader or that founder, what I do is I said, all right, so we put a plan in place for the people. Now, this is your accomplishment because we just worked it together. So even though like you said, that person, that founder went off an idea, they are strategizing on how they're going to make their people better. And that's what a great leader does, is they think about, how do I make these people better? And in doing so, you're now becoming better because we're having the conversation, giving you awareness and insight into how we're going to get people to success. And then that accountability factor, I come back with, all right, so we're going to meet in about 2 to 3 days. We've talked about the people, we've talked about you, we've talked about what the strategy is, we've talked about having to maybe make some adjustments because of this product or this engineering team said this. So when we follow up in a few days, this is what I need from you. So I'm building that expectation. It's a two-way street. I'm giving the accountability, but you're giving me the expectation. So that's how that works.
Yeah. So Patrick, you said something really great. You said being an active listener is really important. So what does that look like virtually, and what does that look like in person?
Well, virtually, I think it's super, super important virtually, especially now. I mean, remote work now is the new norm. So you may be at home, you may be at a WeWork space, you may be at a coffee shop, but what you have to do is you have to really, your cell phone should be on silent. It should be turned off so that you're not distracted. And two, you really should have allotted the time for you to truly be present for the meeting. And for me, I always tell people it's kind of like when you're not saying like auditioning or on TV shows, but you have to make eye contact, look into the camera, and also be aware of like your face. I always tell people, maybe practice in the mirror, because sometimes your facial expressions can give things away. Like if you don't agree with something and you're like, ugh, remember, you're on camera. So it shows. So I always just listen and really lean in. It's okay to lean in when someone is saying something. If you don't lean all the way into where they're seeing like your eyeballs type of thing, but move and make gestures, but totally be focused on the person that you're talking to. In person, well, when there was, it's been so long, when there was in-person meetings, I think too, it's very similar. You would find a conference room or in your office, make sure that there are no distractions. When your office phone would ring, not to answer it or have your calls scheduled on mute or something like that. So it's really about creating a space to where when you're in that meeting or when you're talking to a person or in a group of individuals, that moment, whether it's a 15-minute, 30-minute, 45-minute, or whatever, that moment is for all the people that's in the room right now. Nothing else should matter.
Mm-hmm. So let's go back to leadership development in a fast-paced environment. It can be really difficult to pull leaders aside and get them to do, hours-long training involved. So what are some little tiny things that are helpful for change and for growth that you use in fast-paced environments?
Absolutely. So again, it's all, everything is micro, but it's impactful. So especially in tech, Slack is everywhere. I don't know if traditional companies, we didn't have it. I think it was, maybe it's Microsoft Teams or something like that, but the past 3 tech companies I've been at, it's Slack. So people are looking for, if you're going to give me something, pretty much in the era, Lindsay, of remember years ago when people were doing like short form content, like 8-minute episodes. And it was, I can't think of the show on Comedy Central, the 2 women, they had like a short 8-minute show and it drew people in. So people want something that they can consume pretty quickly. So what I do is I will, of course, pull a couple articles from Harvard Business Review or Gartner or any type of research about leadership and people development. I will take a link of it and read it, put together a few bullet points that's important for them to look over and Slack it out to them. It's fast and sweet. And at the bottom of that message, I say, estimated time to read and review is 4 minutes. I will say every now and then, maybe it's 6 or 7 minutes, but I scale back a few minutes, but I know that it's going to draw their attention and they're going to read it and then we're going to talk about it. And I may throw in a question about, did you find this article helpful? Or I may also follow up in a few days by sending like an example of a case scenario, like what would you do in this particular situation and how applicable is this article or these tips that I've shared to you that it helps. And then when we have our one-on-ones, I'm using the articles that I've collected over the week and we're talking about 1 or 2 of them. So anytime we're having our one-on-ones, you're going to get some coaching and a session from what's been shared. But I always try to keep everything pretty quick, also straight to the point and pull out the most important points because people don't really have time for the hour plus anymore. Even the training that we do for our employees now, those sessions are about 45 minutes to an hour. The first 20 minutes may be me facilitating, and then the other 30 minutes are them actually actively participating, doing something to make sure that they're applying what's been facilitated. And then we wrap up. Like, I don't believe in going over because time is very important. And then just sending follow-up additional tools and notes to keep it fresh and to keep it consistently in their top of mind.
Okay, so I'm obsessed with how you compile resources through articles and let everyone know the amount of time it takes them to go through it. And I notice a lot of publications and newsletters are doing that as well. And it really, really helps motivate people to go through like, oh, this isn't a lot of my time. I'm going to go through this and learn something. That's really cool.
Oh, thank you. And it's also important to be transparent about it. Like, so at our all hands, I may say, hey, we have a great article that I'm going to be sending out. It'll take maybe 5 minutes of your day. And then I also, when I'm sending them out, there's like little visuals, like golden stars, like the accomplishment of reading a 5-minute article, the fact that you were able to find 5 minutes into the day and do it. And throughout the day, if I have the time, I'll follow up and be like, how many of you have read the article? Make it in a competition. People love little games games and competitions to say who finished the article, who can tell me who the author was of the article or the title of the article, or give me one thing that they got from the article and put it in the Slack. Today's theme or last week's theme. It always has a sort of a fun competition. It's engaging, it's conversations, and they know that because it's me, there's going to be follow up. I'm going to ask to see if you are reading it and following it. Because when you come to me to talk about an employee issue, I'm like, hey, do you remember that article I shared? Oh, well, while we're in this meeting, let me put it in this chat so you'll have it with you, and let me tell you why this is important, type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, wow. I mean, there's so many resources out there. Just having someone to pull the best ones is so nice. It's such a luxury. And that's so cool. I can't get over it. It's so great. So in terms of, you mentioned competitiveness, and I feel like tech is a naturally competitive environment. So do you lean into that when you work in tech?
Absolutely. It's all of it. Like you play into your strengths.
Mhm.
I'm a creative outside of work, but I feel like creative and leadership are like they marry each other. They're a perfect fit. So I like to use I used YouTube videos. I'll use little snippets of Survivor or Amazing Race, and I'll use a leadership article and talk about which one of these leaders from this video demonstrated this. I do a quick feedback training class using a 25-second clip from the show The Office, where the employee is looking forward. One of the things she says, I look forward to getting feedback. I love being judged. And then, and
Angela,
then,
right? Right?
right, Angela, yes. And then Steve Carell's character sees her and she's ready for the feedback. He gets the call and he runs into his office. He says, Angela, you did great. Bam, slams the door in her face. And it's 25 seconds. But for those 25 seconds, you're engaged. You're like, oh my God. Then I'm like, what did you see? Even though this is a comedy, what did you see? What went wrong? And people are like, oh, well, she says she feels like she's being judged. That's how we sometimes feel when someone says you're getting feedback. And it's all relatable. Like I find those small videos and plug them in too. And it really gets people going. And I will do the competition. How many leaders completed 4 of the articles that I submitted? Who's watched these videos? If you did, put it in the Slack or just tag me right away and tell me. And I will tell you it's working because I post the results at the end of the week on who's leading the goal board. And people like to win. People like finishing in the top 3. No one likes to be 5th or 6th or 7th place. People are always, and it creates such a strong engagement, and the employees get in on it too because I also provide some people development for them through videos, and I think it really works. So far, I've seen really high engagement from it.
Yeah, and I love, developing and growth, it doesn't have to be boring. And there's so much pop culture media out there that we can utilize that really is relatable, like that office clip. I mean, when I teach class, I use TikTok videos. They're the same content that I could explain myself. But the fact that someone else is doing it in an entertaining multimedia way, it steps up the lesson a little bit.
Absolutely. And I think that too is part of what makes like the tech culture so it's so innovative and so it is there. That's where the differences come because you get
Yeah.
to kind of explore that kind of creative mode to where long gone are the days of having people in a classroom for training or if it's an all day training or something like that. And I think people love that kind of interactive, fun media type of thing. And it makes it relatable and it touches sort of all demographics because there's demographics in tech, the Gen Zers. It's like, oh, okay, this is cool. Like you mentioned the TikTok video. Everyone mostly now knows TikTok or a TikTok
Yeah.
video and they see it and you're able to apply a real applicable learning experience to it. It's a double win, I feel.
Yeah, so creativity has been a word that's popped up a lot. You mentioned that you're creative outside of work and inside of your job as well. And I am a very creative person too. So I'd love to hear how you use your creativity. What are you involved in? What do you like to do?
I'm a screenwriter and a filmmaker, so that automatically lets you know huge imagination here,
Yeah.
storyteller. And I think that when you're, I don't want to say a brilliant storyteller, but when you're a really good storyteller, you think about everything. Like you vision from the
Mhm.
moment someone walks into the room, what's the action, what's the movement. So I use that same philosophy when if I'm designing a learning experience or program. How do I want people to feel? How do I want people to walk away from? What do I want them to see? What is the mood? So it's literally like when I'm designing a people program, I literally have audience. I have what the action will be. I write it out almost in script form, and it's like this is an experience. And I think about too, like when you're pitching something, like I've gone to pitch competitions and I'm thinking, how do I pitch this to this leader for their team? A pitch, usually you get like 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes if the movie producer or whomever is open to it, and you sell it, you make it work. And it's all about thinking of great catchphrase names or things that pop. I'm always reworking a title for something. I used to lead a training called Oliver Pope and Associates. Oliver Pope was loosely based on Olivia Pope. The show
Yeah.
was Scandals, and the people attending the session were called gladiators. Immediately, everyone wanted to be a gladiator, so they wanted to attend. So it's finding ways like that, the creativity side, to get people really interested and immersed into what I don't want to say selling, but what you're pitching so that they'll have a better learning experience.
Yeah. And you said something that is so true in storytelling, and it's knowing your audience. And I feel like it is so important to know your audience in all other areas of life too, especially in business. So I feel like storytellers, I create content for my career. I'm considered a storyteller. We know who we're trying to attract or who we're trying to tell a story to. So how has knowing your audience really helped you in the people world?
Wow. It has helped me 100% because again, especially on the tech side, engineers, they process and think totally different than your operations, your marketing, your
Yeah.
sales team. There's got to be some technical components that they want to know. Whereas sales and marketing, visual aids, or something a little bit more intense. So what I've learned to do too, your tech people, your engineers, you can never go wrong. And this is a tip that I'm sharing here. You can never go wrong if you use like a Star Wars visual or like something really sci-fi high graphic, but also give them some metrics, give them some data. Because again, for them, it's a little bit factual. So you have to weave that into your program when you're giving the expectations. Let them know, like I'll use some Gallup data, like with feedback, I use some actual specifics, percentages, and a breakdown for them to totally get it and to buy into what researchers say. Because engineer it's factual. They want to know, how
Yeah.
does this work? And the sales, other operation team, general people team, they're more for the experience. So how do you combine the technical with the overall warmth of the program? Because I didn't want to say soft skills, because I actually, I'm sort of anti soft skills, because I feel
Yeah.
like soft skills are actually hard skills. Some people find soft skills as something being very hard, but I tried to combine the two, and I feel like by doing that, people walk away and I know I've seen it in the feedback surveys. They're like, you spoke to me in this. I finally got to attend a training that wasn't just for maybe
Mhm.
general population. I felt seen. And I think that is important, because sometimes the
Yeah.
engineering product team sometimes can get left out, and they're like, why am I in this training? This has nothing to do with the work that I do. But now that they have gone through the experience, they see that thought went into developing the program and that they did per se have a seat at the table.
Oh, that's so lovely. I mean, it just, speaks to the importance of being seen and heard in just anything.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Because again, if you don't, you'll lose that audience, and you don't want people sort of like going to a bad movie. If the movie's bad, you're going to tell other people, don't go see this movie. So you want to make sure that the learning experience is worthy, so that when they see the next one, they'll want to come back and they'll tell other people, oh, you should check out this class.
That's amazing. Well, Patrick, this has been a great conversation. I know our audience is going to learn so much from you, be inspired, maybe spark their own creativity. So before we wrap up, do you have anything else that you would like to add or offer to our audience?
I would just offer to them, especially if you're a people leader or if you are leading a team or you have someone on your team that is over your people team, just always be open to the dialogue and allow creativity. It's so important to have that visual experience. It's also okay to experiment, which if you're most of the listeners are tech, they know what we're talking about. You're just
Yeah.
going for it. But yeah, just enjoy the ride. And I think the end of the day is understand your why. Know your
Mm.
like I know my why. I do what I do because I love people. I love to see people be successful. So when you know your why, it drives you to be really successful and productive. And again, listeners out there, know your why. It's so important.
So if people want to reach out to you and connect, what's the best way to do so?
You can totally find me on LinkedIn. My LinkedIn is Patrick Sutton, and I have a really cool headshot. I'm holding a coffee mug, and it says, "I woke up like this." And you'll see head of people, but you can
Beyonce.
definitely find me. Okay, yeah, I woke up like this. I woke up like this, So yeah, Patrick Sutton on LinkedIn at LinkedIn and head of people at Main Street. You'll see it, and I'm always open to connect and engage with others and talk shop because I love talking about people development.
Amazing. Well, if you or anyone you know is like Patrick and enjoys working with people and supporting them, reach out to me at lindsay@staffgeek.com. Thank you for listening to Staff Geek's People Analytics Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Patton, and I'm always looking to interview leaders who put people first. If you or someone you know lead with a people-first mindset, please email me at lindsay@staffgeek.com. That's LINDSAY@staffgeek.com. If you want to take things a step deeper and understand your organization's true culture DNA, I encourage you to take Staff Geek's free culture assessment. Just head to staffgeek.com and click the button that says Free Culture Assessment. Thanks again for listening.